Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I cannot believe I'm gonna say it, but today I'm back for Lawn Fawn as a guest designer for the Lawnfawnatics Challenge 83, Make the Sentiment a Star. So thank you so much Lawn Fawn for this opportunity to be a guest designer for this challenge. I'm so honored, thrilled and excited. To start with the card of today, I used the fairies from the Fairy Friends. I used the Gnome Sweet Gnome, the Butterfly Kisses and a Bug Deal. Off camera I already colored them with my Copic markers. In the description box below you can find my color combos for these images. For the background I used the largest die of the slimline dies with sliders. I used Bristol Smooth cardstock since I find it the smoothest paper for ink blending with Distress Oxide inks. For this background I used Tombow Glass, Blueprint Sketch and Chipped Sapphire. I always use my Taylor Expression brushes when I'm using Distress Oxide inks. I found it the best way to blend the colors together without harsh lines. I will speed up this video for you because it took a while to ink blend it nicely. When I'm done ink blending, I use my distress sprayer and tap off the water to create some dimension on the background. For the excess water I use a paper towel. To protect the space for the sentiment, I use a little square to lay down on the background before I splatter it with white paint. I use Distress Picket Fence paint and the Tim Holtz Distress Splatter brush to create some white fine splatters. This is the first time I'm using it and I find it quite handy. Next, I die cut out of Bristol a new panel to ink blend my grass and hillsides. I used pine needles and Mauve Lawn Distress Oxide inks. I also splatter it with water and used gold Genzytembi metallic paint. Recently I got the pine needle Distress Oxide inks and since I have it, I am in love with it. And I think it's the most charming green there is of the Distress Oxide inks. You have Twisted Citron, I think Evergreen Ball is also a little bit greenish, bluish, and Mauve Lawn of course, but Pine Needles is my new favorite color. Next I already die cut a rainbow for this card. To show you how I did it, I made one extra just for you. I used the new Stitch rainbow die and the outside in Stitch star stackables for those two ends on the rainbow. I find it easier to use liquid glue so I can move the pieces if that's necessary. Next, I cut out of Bristol Smooth a panel with the mushroom border die. I used my Copic's W1, W3 and W5 to create some dimension on the stems of the mushrooms. Out of peacock cardstock, I die cut the tops of the mushrooms and added them with liquid glue. Next, I die cut the tree tops with the stitch tree border die with cilantro cardstock that was left over from another project. The cilantro was painted with Mauve Distress Oxide ink and some same color ink splatters. The border with trees was die cut out of chocolate cardstock. I used my Copic marker E27 to create some barks on the trees. And I finally cut down the panel with my paper trimmer. Now it's time to measure. I placed temporarily the fairies and the rainbow to measure out where I need to die cut the panels. I sized the grassy hills and stitch hillside borders to die cut them with my die cutting machine. I used my new Misty stamping tool to stamp my sentiment on the card. I used the Lucky Star sentiment, and when I saw this sentiment, I knew I wanted to use it for this challenge. To be sure of the placement, I laid down the rainbow to know exactly where I want my sentiment to go. First I used my anti-static powder pouch to remove everything. Then I used my Versamark ink to stamp my sentiment. I used some white embossing powder and heat set it with my heat gun. Now it's time to put the card together. I already made a card base that measures 3.5 by 8.5 inches. First I placed a tree border with the hillside already on it with liquid glue. Then I put some foam squares on the rainbow and placed it on the card panel. Then I took out all of my images to create the night scene of this card. Since I don't have the dies from the Gnome Sweet Gnome yet, I fussy cut out the gnome, the watering can and the big mushroom house. Some images got liquid glue, some got glue dots and some of them got liquid glue and foam squares. The colors of this card are well presented together for a night scene, I guess. What do you think? For some embellishment of this card, I use some Nouveau Jewel Drops Morning Dew, Ranger Stickles Stardust, Nouveau Crystal Glaze and Nouveau Crystal White Drops. And that finishes up my card for today. I want to thank Lawn Fawn again for this opportunity to invite me as a guest designer for this challenge. The challenge 83 Make the Sentiment a Star. I hope you liked my card and this video. If you did, please give me some thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss any video of Creative Studio Nancy. Thank you so much for watching everyone, and I see you next time. Bye bye!